What's going on, everybody? It's your boy C-Zar, and we are talking about Bitcoin today, BTC USD. It is the 19th day of March, and here we are moving right along through this month, sitting just below $70,000. Yes, here we are. 11 hours, 26 minutes left in the day, moving down. It was very obvious that we would move down because, again, well, I shouldn't say very obvious. You know, maybe for some people, there were a lot of people up here who were saying we were in a bull market. We're going to go back up to 160K, new all-time highs. The bear market's over. Literally, this would be the shortest bear market in existence. I mean, this is like 30% of the time, 40% of the time that a normal bear market takes. We didn't even hit like the halfway point from a time perspective. To me, it seemed obvious because, again, my perspective is that, you know, since this time frame over here, that we would be moving sideways until likely May, if not June, if not even July. This is going to be a long consolidation phase where we're moving sideways, longer than this one. That's been the expectation all along, right? Is that it will be longer than this one. And I think already people are trying to compare what we're doing here with what we did here. I've been seeing it, right? Just imagine this is what's going on. Okay, this is what's going on. We are very, very polarized, okay? Not that we weren't polarized back here, but we were polarized. That's why we moved sideways. When I say polarized, I mean there's a lot of people telling you this is about to happen. There's a lot of people telling you this is about to happen. And it's been like that since over here. Okay. And what hasn't happened? Either of those things. We've just been moving sideways. And every day, I feel like a broken record, but I say the same thing, and I will continue to say the same thing until I have an inclination that we are going to make a move out of this. And I think this move, whenever we do break out, will be to the downside, not to the upside. But back here, first off, back here, we're going to pump back up to 100K. That was the whole thought of the market. The bears were quiet, the bulls were super loud, right? Sound familiar? And then down here, everybody was saying, we're going to go below 50K. We're going to go sub 40K. I just thought that we'd go a little bit below this low, and I was wrong about that, but whatever. I wasn't like mega bearish right there. But nonetheless, you know, a lot of the market was wrong, and the bears were the loudest, the bulls were very quiet. Same rhetoric here as we had over here, and the bears were quiet, and then we moved down. Same rhetoric here that we had over here, and the bulls were quiet, and then we moved up. And it's the same thing happening at the top, and it's even the same thing now. Now, what's going on is you have a bunch of chart geniuses out there who are trying to say, and I don't mean any offense if any of my friends or even if my adversaries are making these comparisons, but who are trying to compare this to this to this, right? And I just don't think that that's a fair comparison. I mean, we look at this on a daily time frame. The RSI reading has been different each one of these times, okay? The stochastics are actually kind of similar, in all fairness. The MACD is different. This one's different than this time, is different than this time, right? Somewhat similar, but different. And actually, if anything, the MACD is kind of taking a bullish posture and crossing above the zero right now. We're just consolidating. This MACD comes back and consolidates. We're probably going to bounce from there. Mark my words, okay? This is what we were talking about back here on the 26th of March, was that once we get up to the zero line, that's where we're going to find resistance. Well, now I'm thinking that once we get to a point where either the daily cross happens, where we get like a slight red cross, we're either going to get a false cross like this, or we're not going to cross at all. We'll get very, very close to touching, and then we'll bounce. Something like, let's see, I mean, something like that, but to the upside, not to the downside. We're not really getting an example of this because we've just been bearish for so long. I mean, look, I guess it's more common to see a false cross, so maybe once we get the cross, that'll be when we know that we're at the low. But we'll look for other things to suggest that we're also finding support. Anyways, all I'm trying to say is 2 days ago, people were screaming from the top of their lungs, bull market. Some of those same people now are trying to say that we're about to do this. And I just don't think that that's likely at all. I don't think it's likely at all. Not that we can't move lower. We absolutely can move lower. I just don't think that we're breaking below 60K right now. I certainly don't think that we're going to start the next leg down like this. That's not in my realm of possibilities. Well, realm of probabilities. Let's look at the short-term stuff. We'll zoom back out. I don't want to talk too much. Okay, we could talk all day. 1 hour time frame here. A lot of volume on this wick. We're on the Binance chart, so this chart matters whenever it comes to volume. You have bullish divergence on your 1 hour RSI. Imagine that. the whole damn market wakes up and is bearish and is comparing this exact scenario to the big drop that happened here in January down into February, and they're doing that right when we have bullish divergence and very clear, I think, buying signals happening here at this low point and this low point here. I think we're going to move up. I really do think we're going to move up from here. Stochastics even has some bullish divergence. The RSI, you don't just have one drive of bullish divergence, you're forming two drives right now. Okay? Two drives. Whenever you get oversold and you come out of it and you reject back into the oversold zone, that's a very bearish thing, you guys. That's a very bearish thing. And you did it not just once, but twice. You didn't really have very bearish price action at all. Volume died off. The only time it came in was on this massive wick compared to the body. That was a big wick. That's buying pressure. So here we are breaking down lower, and well, not a whole lot of volumes coming in at all. We not only have bullish divergence on the RSI, which is double bullish divergence, but we have bullish divergence on the stochastics and on the MACD. All on the 1 hour time frame. I'm not talking about anything fantastic. Just because I'm saying there's bullish divergence doesn't mean I'm going to be one of those guys saying we're going to 100K, we're going to 80K. No, none of that's happening. But we're probably not going to move lower right now. 4 hour time frame, the RSI is oversold. It's the same thing, guys. It's the same old thing. And this last one was a little bit different. It was a little bit different. I'll give you some slack there. It threw me off a little bit, right? I thought from this point here, this point here, this point I did still think that we'd climb up, but from this point I was convinced that we would move down. I didn't think that we would hold this. I did not expect this move up, but I was bearish from the high point. I was literally bearish from like the top, so I was off by a little bit. Who cares? Whatever. Not financial advice, not a financial advisor, but I do think that we're probably at a relative low point here, because from here we're oversold, and I'm calling this a low point. From here we were oversold, and I'm not calling this a low point, it just is a low point. From here we were oversold, and this was a low point. From here we were oversold, and this was a low point as well. You seeing the trend? It's the same thing to the overbought area too. Those are the high points. It's been very easy. Connect the dots, and we have what's called a trend line. And people are bearish here, right? People are bearish here. You know, there's a couple of things. There's a couple of reasons why these trend lines are not so helpful either. You connect the dots, and logically, we're pattern seekers. So logically, you would think, well, we have a little bit lower to go at least. Oftentimes, these trend lines, you actually find support just below the trend line, and then that's whenever you move up. But sometimes you also miss the trend line, keeping people waiting whenever you're at a prior area of support, a prior area of resistance, a prior area of resistance here, and you bounce. That happens too. Relative low to relative high. Oh, come now. We're right at the golden ratio. We're right there, forming a potential double bottom with bullish divergence on all of our 1 hour time frames. I'm not calling for this to happen. I'm just saying I don't think that we keep moving down from here. We probably move up. Maybe we move up just a little bit, and then we keep moving down. I could see that happening. Maybe this is a relative low just like this was, and we slowly work our way up above this high. I could see that happening too. Right now, I'm not sure what comes after the recovery. I'm just confident that we recover. And this is going to help us decide, do we get higher highs or do we go below this level? I'll tell you what it is. It's going to help us decide that. You ready? It's very common whenever you go to the golden ratio to come up to the 0.5382 area to find resistance if you're working your way down, okay? This is the path that we'd be on if we were to go lower than the golden ratio, and likely down to the 786, 886. That still doesn't mean that we go below this low. Maybe we do, maybe we do. We'll get there if that happens. We'll talk about it if it happens. But all I'm trying to say is if this area doesn't hold us as support, we likely come somewhere between 70.6 and 71.8K, somewhere in this range, find resistance, and then come down. We can wick above. That doesn't count. I'm talking about closing prices. If we start to close 4 hour time frames above 71.8K, if we start to close 4 hour time frames above there, then there's a solid chance that this is a low, much like this was a low, much like this was a low, much like that was a low, right? And we build from here. If we close above 71.8K, the next target is 73.4K. And if we get above 73.4K, this is a relative low, and we will move above this high, likely, statistically speaking. Nothing's guaranteed. We could do all this and still crap from there. I don't think that would happen. There are resistance points right here. I'm sure we find a little bit of turbulence. But again, we'll go from there when we get there. Right now, I'm just curious to see, in case you didn't pick up on it, the main thought here is, do we find resistance in this area and return to the golden ratio, or do we start closing above this area and expect to climb from there? Statistically speaking, the first time you interact with the golden ratio, you do bounce most of the time. And that bounce could take you here, that bounce could take you here, that bounce could take you wherever, higher. Statistically speaking, if you bounce from here, you find resistance here, and then you return the second time, you won't bounce the second time, you'll go through. If we do bounce the second time, we'll be apprehensive to that as well. But I hope I've given you some paths to consider at least. 4-hour time frame, the RSI, in my opinion, is giving us a very clear signal, the same signal it's given us every single time since February, that we are at a point where it's a good time to get bullish. If you're trading, if you're in a relative range, if you want to call these swings, these very small swings, the stochastics, same thing, man. Every time we've been oversold like this, where have we been? Go back and look for yourself. It's at the low points. Maybe not pinpoint there, but very, very close. And the MACD, right at the zero. I mean, this is a perfect area to bounce, right at the zero with these oscillators. It's perfect. And on top of that, the histogram here is at some of the lowest readings that we've seen throughout this entire, this entire consolidation phase. Bottoming signals all around on the 1 hour and the 4 hour. Daily time frame, we rejected the overbought zone. That's no fun. It's very common, trust when I tell you, very common when you reject the overbought zone to find support at the 50 or the 40, somewhere in there. Sometimes you find support at the 60, but the 50, man, the 50 is very common. And today, we're below the 50. But we have 11 hours, 15 minutes left. If we can move up and close the day a little bit higher, we might actually just close right at the 50. That'd be a bullish signal, right? We did that last time, rejected the overbought zone, closed basically right at the 50, and then we moved up. We literally did that last time. Let's just see, what was I going to do? Stochastics look bearish here on the daily time frame, but you also like to bounce around the 50. You did that here. You did that here. You found resistance here. You found support right there. You found support back here. You kind of just went right through it all these other times. That's also pretty common. But I think with everything in conjecture, that makes sense that we might look to bounce around here. Higher lows. Whoops. Let me get an actual straight line here. Higher lows here. Imagine that today we closed just a little bit higher than where we are now. Instead of at 69.6K, we closed like at 70K right above there. We'd be bouncing right at the 50 and right on this trend line, on the daily time frame, on this daily RSI uptrend that we've had. Typically doesn't mean it has to happen, okay? This is a typical thing, not a guaranteed thing to happen. It doesn't have to happen, but this is how my brain works. Typically, with uptrends, they don't end until you get into the overbought zone. With downtrends, they don't end until you get into the oversold zone. Typically. Doesn't need to happen, but running with that thought, we haven't gotten into the overbought zone yet. We rejected it. We haven't gotten there yet. So I think we will probably do that on this next run up. This very well could be the point at which we do run up and see higher prices than this. It could be a point where we move up, we find slightly lower highs, and then we move down. And we don't actually get overbought. We get a lower high here, and then we come down as well. Whatever the case may be, I'm not expecting a grandiose move up or down. We're just moving sideways until May at the earliest, July at the latest. Probably sometime in June is when we'll break out of this range to the downside. I'm thinking early June. We'll probably find the high point of this range at some point in April, if I had to guess. And that high point, if I'm guessing, again, that's all we've got right now, that high point probably is not going to interact with this line. We will get very, very, very close to this line, but we won't touch it. That's my expectation. And if we do go above this line, I'm very confident that we won't go above these levels here, above 85K. Okay. Other than that, it's just sideways. That's all it is. Hit that like button, subscribe. Thank you all for being here. I'll see you on the next one. Take care. Bye bye.